What would matter most in your soul's life review? What really matters there? By David Russo. What if everything we value here looks different there? What if, at the end of your life, you discovered that many of the things you spent decades worrying about barely mattered at all? Imagine seeing your entire life from the perspective of the soul, not through the eyes of your career, your bank account, your possessions, your reputation, or even the identity you carried while you were here. What would stand out? Perhaps it would be the people you loved, the people you hurt, the moments you helped someone when nobody was watching, the opportunities you ignored, the courage you showed, and the experiences that changed who you became. We cannot know whether a soul actually experiences a life review after death, but the idea raises a powerful question for the life we are living now. If you eventually saw your entire life from a higher perspective, what would matter most? Introduction: Seeing your life from the other side. The idea of a life review appears in spiritual traditions, philosophical discussions, and accounts associated with near-death experiences. The details vary tremendously, and none of us can know with certainty what happens after death. But the concept itself is fascinating. Consciousness somehow looks back upon the life it has just completed and sees it with a clarity that may have been impossible while living inside it. If such a review exists, perhaps its values are very different from the values we often use on earth. Here, we measure ourselves by salaries, titles, achievements, attractiveness, popularity, positions, victories, and status. But would the soul use the same scoreboard? Or might it care about things that are much harder to measure? Love, compassion, courage, growth, forgiveness, intention, connection, and the effect we had on other people. Exploring that possibility can change the way we think about what matters while we still have time to live it. Hello, this is David Russo. There's so much to attend to when it comes to our responsibilities in life. Not only what we need to do today, but what we want for our future as well. All that can consume most of our time and attention. At the same time, an audiobook such as this, pointing out what might matter most in a soul's life review, can inspire us to keep our focus on what's truly important. Sometimes thinking about how we might eventually look back on our lives can help us decide how we want to live them right now. Chapter 1. The Earthly Scoreboard. Human beings are surrounded by measurements. We measure income, grades, promotions, followers, views, awards, houses, accomplishments, and possessions. These measurements are useful because they help us navigate the physical world. The problem begins when we confuse what can be measured with what ultimately matters. Imagine looking back at your life after leaving the physical world. Would you care that one person had a larger house than another? Would you care about the model of car you drove or whether your job title impressed people? Perhaps these things would appear as pieces of the environment in which your life unfolded rather than the purpose of the life itself. That does not make achievement meaningless. Building something, creating wealth, developing a talent, or pursuing excellence can teach discipline, courage, creativity, and perseverance. The deeper question may be what those achievements did to you and what you did with them. Perhaps the soul would be less interested in what you accumulated than in who you became while accumulating it. Chapter 2. How much did you love? If there were one question that might rise above almost everything else in a life review, perhaps it would be surprisingly simple. How much did you love? Not merely romantic love, but the many forms love can take: friendship, family, kindness, patience, loyalty, compassion, generosity, and genuine concern for another person's well-being. Some of the most meaningful moments of a lifetime may appear insignificant while they are happening. Sitting beside someone who is frightened, listening when another person desperately needs to speak, encouraging a child, calling an aging parent, forgiving someone, helping a stranger. These moments rarely receive trophies, yet they can remain in another person's memory for decades. Perhaps love matters because it connects lives together. If consciousness is more interconnected than we presently understand, then loving another person may never be an isolated act. What you give moves outward. Someone treated with kindness may carry that kindness into another relationship. In that sense, one loving moment could travel much farther through the world than you ever realized. Chapter 3. How did you affect other people? We usually experience life from the inside looking outward. We know what people did to us because we experienced their actions directly. But we may have surprisingly little awareness of what it felt like for other people to experience us. A life review might reverse that perspective. Imagine understanding not only what you said, but how another person felt when you said it. Perhaps you would finally see how deeply your encouragement helped someone, or how painfully a careless remark affected them. You might discover consequences that you never knew existed. This possibility does not have to be frightening. You might also discover goodness you never recognized. A conversation you forgot might have changed someone's direction. A compliment might have restored confidence at exactly the right moment. Perhaps one revelation of a soul's life review would be discovering that we affected far more people than we ever knew. Chapter 4. What did you do when nobody was watching? Reputation is what other people know about us. Character may be revealed by what we do when nobody else will ever know. If a life review contained the complete story, there would be no audience to impress and no image left to maintain. Some of the most revealing moments might therefore be private ones. Did you return something that did not belong to you when you could easily have kept it? Did you help someone without expecting recognition? Did you remain honest when dishonesty would have benefited you? Did you show compassion towards someone who had nothing to offer you? Perhaps these moments would carry unusual weight because they reveal intention without the influence of applause. When there is no reward, the action itself becomes the statement. The soul's review, if such a thing exists, might reveal that some of our greatest victories occurred in moments nobody else ever saw. Chapter 5. The importance of intention. Two people can perform exactly the same action for completely different reasons. Someone may give generously because they genuinely want to help. Another may give because they want admiration. From the outside, the behavior can look identical. Internally, however, two very different experiences are occurring. Perhaps a life review would reveal the intentions underneath our actions. Why did you pursue success? Why did you help someone? Why do you walk away? Why did you stay? Why did you speak? Why did you remain silent? Human beings judge behavior largely from the outside because that is what we can observe. A deeper perspective might see the motivation underneath it. This could also introduce compassion into the review. Our intentions are rarely perfectly pure. We are complicated creatures carrying fear, desire, insecurity, love, pride, and conditioning simultaneously. Perhaps the purpose would not be to condemn imperfect motivations, but to understand them. Awareness itself might become part of the soul's growth. Chapter 6. What did your difficulties teach you? When we are suffering, we naturally want the suffering to end. Very few people experiencing heartbreak, disappointment, grief, rejection, or failure stop in the middle of it and celebrate the educational opportunity. Yet, looking backward, we sometimes recognize that difficult periods changed us profoundly. Imagine viewing those experiences from outside the lifetime. Events that once seemed meaningless might appear connected to later growth. A failure may have redirected you. A painful relationship may have taught boundaries. A loss may have deepened your compassion. An obstacle may have revealed strength you did not know you possessed. This does not mean every tragedy needs to be romanticized or assigned a hidden spiritual purpose. Some suffering is simply terrible from the human perspective. But perhaps a life review would ask a different question. Given what happened, what did you eventually do with it? Pain may not define the soul nearly as much as what the soul learned, created, or gave because it had experienced that pain. Chapter 7. The chances you took and the chances you avoided. Regret often comes from two directions. We regret things we did, but we can also regret things we never attempted. The second kind of regret can be quieter because there is no dramatic event attached to it, only an unlived possibility. Perhaps a life review would reveal those crossroads. You might see the moment you wanted to speak but remained silent, wanted to create something but feared embarrassment, wanted to tell someone you loved them but waited too long, or wanted to change direction but convinced yourself it was safer to stay where you were. The question might not be whether every risk would have succeeded. Many would not. The deeper question could be whether fear prevented you from participating fully in your own life. Perhaps souls do not measure courage by victory. Perhaps courage is measured by the willingness to enter the experience despite not knowing how it will turn out. Chapter 8. Did you become more conscious? We arrive in life knowing very little about ourselves. Much of our early identity is inherited. Families, cultures, schools, experiences, successes, failures, and relationships gradually tell us who we are supposed to be. Eventually, however, many people begin questioning the identity they have accumulated. Who am I underneath my roles? Why do I react the way I do? Which beliefs are actually mine? Why do certain situations trigger me? What am I afraid of? What do I truly value? These questions can represent the beginning of a different kind of development. Not merely becoming more successful, but becoming more conscious. Perhaps spiritual growth is not about becoming flawless. It may be about seeing yourself more clearly. A soul's life review might therefore reveal not whether you achieved perfection, but whether you gradually became more aware of what was happening inside you and how that inner world shaped everything around you. Chapter 9. Did you forgive? Forgiveness may be one of the most difficult human experiences because pain can become attached to identity. Someone hurts us, and years later that event may still occupy emotional space within us. We can physically leave an experience while continuing to carry it psychologically. Imagine seeing the entire situation during a life review, not merely from your perspective, but perhaps from the other person's perspective as well. You might see their history, fear, ignorance, wounds, and limitations. Understanding would not make harmful behavior acceptable, but it might make the complete picture visible. And perhaps you would also have to forgive yourself. Many people carry guilt over choices made by an earlier version of themselves, who knew less, understood less, or was struggling with circumstances their present self can now see more clearly. Maybe one purpose of reviewing a life would not be punishment at all. Maybe it would be understanding deeply enough that forgiveness becomes possible. Chapter 10. Did you use what you were given? Not everyone begins life with the same circumstances. People receive different abilities, opportunities, resources, families, challenges, bodies, environments, and lengths of time. Comparing two lives solely by their visible outcomes therefore tells us surprisingly little. Perhaps the more meaningful question is what you did with what was available to you. Did you develop your abilities? Did you share what you learned? Did you create something? Did you encourage someone? Did you recognize opportunities when they appeared? Did you keep moving after setbacks? From this perspective, the soul might not compare your life with anyone else's. There may be no cosmic leaderboard. Your life could be evaluated within the unique circumstances in which you lived it. The question would not be, why weren't you someone else? It might simply be, what did you do with the life that was yours? Chapter 11. The small moments may become the big ones. We naturally organize life around major events, graduations, marriages, careers, births, deaths, achievements, moves, and turning points. But a lifetime is actually composed mostly of ordinary moments. Breakfasts, conversations, car rides, walks, quiet evenings, brief encounters with strangers. What if some of these seemingly insignificant moments became surprisingly important during a life review? Perhaps the 5 minutes you spent comforting someone would matter more than an award you spent 5 years pursuing. Maybe a conversation with your child would glow brighter than a promotion you once considered one of your greatest accomplishments. The soul's perspective, if there is one, might completely rearrange the hierarchy of importance. What seemed enormous could become small, and what seemed small could become enormous. That possibility offers a beautiful reminder while we are alive. Do not underestimate ordinary moments simply because nobody is keeping score. Chapter 12. What would matter most? Imagine now that the review is almost complete. You have seen the ambitions, relationships, arguments, accomplishments, mistakes, victories, fears, losses, kindness, and countless ordinary moments that composed your human lifetime. What would remain when everything unnecessary fell away? Perhaps several themes would rise above the rest. How deeply you loved, how much you learned, how you treated others, whether you became more conscious, whether you used your opportunities, whether you found courage despite fear, whether you forgave, and whether your presence made another person's journey a little better. And perhaps the greatest surprise would be that the life review was never really about determining whether you were successful by Earth's standards. Maybe it was about understanding the experience itself. What did this lifetime teach you? How did you change because you lived it? And what did others experience because you were here? Conclusion. Live with the review in mind. We do not have to know whether a literal life review occurs after death for the idea to have value. We can perform a smaller version of it while we are still alive. We can occasionally step outside the urgency of everyday life and ask, if I look back at this period years from now, or from beyond this lifetime, what would actually matter? That question can rearrange priorities. The argument that seemed essential may suddenly seem insignificant. The phone call we have been postponing may become important. Time with someone we love may become more valuable than another hour spent chasing something we do not truly need. Living with the possibility of a life review does not mean becoming obsessed with death. It means becoming more conscious of life. And perhaps that is the greatest value of asking what would matter in your soul's life review. We cannot change every choice we have already made, but the review is not finished because the life is not finished. There are still people to love, experiences to have, mistakes to correct, things to create, opportunities to take, forgiveness to offer, and moments of kindness that have not happened yet. Whatever ultimately matters there, we have the extraordinary opportunity to begin living more of it here.